Woman Stands Shining. I will not pretend that I can say your name beautifully in your language. So I just say Pat McCabe, Woman Stands Shining, which you can see already. And she is a Diné grandmother, an elder, of course, an activist, an artist, a writer, and a ceremonial leader. And of course, an international speaker. We all have seen her. I had the big fortune to see and to be with her in Dartington, and I was a bit in awe of you. So I'm so pleased to welcome you. Pat is a global voice for peace, and she draws upon indigenous sources of thriving life to reframe the question about sustainability and balance. More people coming in to see you. They obviously know you are on now. And Pat is devoted to supporting the next generation, women's nation and men's nation, in being functional members of the hoop of life. So it is this thriving of life, isn't it, which is so at the core of those teachings, instead of the destruction of life, which we see everywhere and which is inherent in our current system. So it's a real honor to welcome Woman Stands Shining, and about her subject, she will basically talk about the feminine in conjunction with the thriving of life and where we need to go. Is that right? And the teachings behind it?
Yeah, so there's a phrase that I have about standing with the authority of the Mother Earth. So that was what I was intending to speak about.
Perfect. So I will ask Richard to click me out now, and you just do whatever comes and whatever you want to do, and I will come in later and convey some of the questions from the audience.
So I'll say greetings to each and everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My deep apologies for arriving late. I'm glad I randomly checked my email on a Sunday morning, which I don't usually do, and saw that you were waiting for me. So yeah, I did the math and double checked the math, but missed that you had a time change. So my apologies there. So I think what I'd like to do is start, and Krista, if you could mute, I'd like to start with, and everybody else too, by singing a song, and it just works best when everybody's muted except for me. And I think that will help me arrive and help our process. It's a way that I begin many of my sessions. I want to sing a grandmother calling song, and I'm going to sing 2 rounds. One is for the interior, our interior, but also that which is taking place below the earth. We've just come across the equinox, and for my relatives in the southern hemisphere, life is getting ready to crank up below the earth now and get very active as life on the surface slows down. And those of us in the northern hemisphere, life is all that riotous life going on underground, and all the plans and all the receiving of understanding from the heart of Mother Earth is beginning to appear on the surface for us up here in the north and in our springtime. So in that way, I'm thinking about it, moving from the interior to the exterior. And so for us in the Diné way, we call human beings holy earth surface walkers. And so that's our place. And so singing for me, especially as a woman, for my relationship to what takes place below the surface of the earth, and then being able to travel with that medicine up and out to the surface and present it to this holy star. So I'm a part of that long spiral that starts in the center of the earth and goes out to the sun. So just acknowledging both parts of that journey that I have as a woman and that we all have as human beings, certainly our interior life and then our agency and action out into the world. So calling on the grandmothers to be here with us on this day and to bless each and every one who's made the made the space and the time to come and be here this morning, and to also inform this discussion here. So. We ha ya hey ya, we ya ya huero. We ha ya hey ya, we ya ya huero. Eh yo, we ha ya hey ya, we ya huero. Eh yo, we ha ya. We ha ya, we ya huero, yo. We ha ya huero, we ha ya huero, yo. We ha ya, we ya huero, yo. We ha ya we ha ya we ya huero, yo. So I want to greet all of the grandmothers to the east, all the grandmothers to the south, all the grandmothers to the west, all the grandmothers to the north. And I always see them come dancing in and making a place for the grandfathers as well. So we greet the sacred masculine, sacred feminine, the elderhood and the knowledge and the wisdom that resides in those medicines. So it's been a long process for me to be able to step fully into these words, this title that I've been walking with and trying on, I'll say, to understand, who I am and why I'm here and who we are and why we're here. So I think I'm going to start actually by talking about this one right here. So this is, some of you may recognize it as the medicine wheel, also call it the sacred hoop of life, right? And so it represents so many things about this construct of earth and our life here. It represents the 4 colors of man. It represents the 4 seasons and also the 4 seasons of our lives, from child to adolescent, coming into our adulthood and then our elderhood. It also represents all this many cycles that we have here on this Mother Earth. But one of the things that I've really been studying deeply is it represents all the different life forms that are here. And every single one has been given a place on this sacred hoop. So we say different animals and different medicines lie in each of the cardinal directions, and also above, below, and at the center. And so we human beings, the 5-fingered ones, have also been given a place on this sacred hoop as well. And so this is what I've been thinking about for years now. But new it's an endless teaching, that this symbol of the sacred hoop. But to begin, I'll say that every single member of this sacred hoop, every life form on this Mother Earth, has a very special way of upholding its part of the sacred hoop. And so we can say that if any member does not uphold their part of the sacred hoop of life, then the integrity of the hoop begins to fail. And so I've been thinking about that and thinking how specialized every member is, how specialized the dragonfly is, how specialized the platypus is, how specialized the plankton is, and the fungus, and you know, from rocks, mountains, water, all very, very specialized in the way that they uphold their part of the sacred hoop. And so I say that each one of us has a very special, perfect design to cause life to thrive, or to be able to uphold our part of the hoop. And so this has been my inquiry. This was the beginning of my inquiry in terms of my womanhood, was to ask, so what does it mean? What is the function of the human being on this sacred hoop? How do we live our lives in such a way that we uphold the rest of the sacred hoop? And then from there, I asked, you know, and what does it mean to identify as the female of our kind, of the five-fingered ones? What is that role? And how do I uphold it? So this is a really exciting prospect for me, and there's some new information that has come in for me that has made me feel even more alive in this inquiry. And I'll just take a little detour here to say that, you know, my daughter, maybe some of you know my daughter, Lila June Johnston. If you don't, I highly recommend looking up her work. But she is studying traditional land management practices. And so she was letting me know that, you know, as they're taking core samples out of the earth, which honestly is a little bit problematic for Indigenous people to just randomly gouge deep holes into the Mother Earth's body, just so that we can know something that we want to know. This has kind of been our trend, and I'm going to say it, I think it is a violation of this Mother Earth. But nevertheless, these core samples are being taken out of the Mother Earth, and the deeper into the earth you go, the farther back in time you go, because of its sedimentary layers of living on the earth, right? And so what they're discovering is that if you go back far in time, you come upon maybe places that had very, very limited biodiversity. And the exciting part for me is then we see humans arrive. And in some of these places where we see humans arrive, suddenly biodiversity explodes. And so this is my daughter's study, is traditional land management practices, and noticing how human beings, and you know, I guess this is being discovered in many parts of the earth, but I'm thinking about our continent over here, and to just be able to really see how we can be a presence that causes biodiversity to thrive. So human endeavor, a form of agriculture. And so what do we mean what do I mean in this moment when I say agriculture? Let me define that a little bit here. And that is taking actions with the intention of being able to receive the fruit of the land. So that's pretty general and simplistic, but I say that because it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, making everything and, you know, rearranging the earth, rearranging the earth for our convenience. It can also mean very, very light touch cultivating, but it can also mean, you know, we did a lot of controlled burns traditionally here. And so that's a little bit more radical, but in the end, it ended up enhancing the biodiversity and the health. And so we ended up creating large forests, say of like the black walnut forests in the southeast, whole clam and clam harvesting areas on the coasts, seaweed and such also. So it was quite diverse. But I don't want to get too far off on that. But what I want to say is that the main happiness I took out of my daughter telling me about this is that we can be a species that causes life to thrive. And as I look at all the other members of this sacred hoop and think about their roles, and I think, wow, it's really something to have every single other member of this hoop, just the way that they conduct their lives, supports and upholds all the rest of the members of this sacred hoop of life. So every butterfly, their whole life, that's what they're doing. Every beaver, that's what they're doing. Every bear, that's what they're doing. Just their being alive supports all the rest of the life. So I have to believe that there is a way for us to be that and to do that. And so I'm very inspired by this idea right now. And so I'm thinking about, so that's my prayer as I go out and make my offerings to the directions, again, starting in the east and going around east, south, west, north, above, below, at the center. As I call out to that which serves life, light, and love, I'm asking, tell me, how do I be this being? How do I be this human being that just my life, my way of being causes and all other life to thrive and supports all other life in its thriving? So I continue to be in this deep inquiry about my perfect design for thriving life. But when I came to this point of asking, so what's the particular function of me as the female here? That's taken me into some very beautiful and deep terrain. And I have spoken extensively in other places about my experience during my years of being in the moon time. So I'll say that here, that I feel that this is a practice for the women's nation, that time of the month, every month. In modern world paradigm, that has been really taken away from women's nation. We are told that the world doesn't want to know anything about this. They don't want to see any evidence of this anywhere. And that we are to carry on during that time as though nothing is happening. We don't want to know anything about it. And we expect you to, perform and do your duties exactly as you do on any other day. And that's the mainstream current around this incredible time. So, one thing that I say is that my biology as a human being can give me clues about my perfect design for thriving life. My biology is still working to be that member of thriving life. It's not working for death. It's still trying to find every way possible to live healthy and to thrive. And so I look to my biology for clues about this perfect design for thriving life. And so as the female of our kind, one of the most noticeable things is my menstruation time. And so I think, when women all live in community at the same time, what happens? What happens? They all begin to cycle at the same time. That's incredible. That's quite mysterious and quite magical. And so I feel like that's a huge clue for us human beings, is why would that happen? And so as in my own ceremonial life, in my own cultures, Diné by blood, and I was adopted into the Lakota spiritual way of life 28 years ago. And so in both of those ways, I've come to understand that both of these cultures really hold a woman as being quite different during that time. And so I learned how to set aside time during that time and get quiet. And I was told that I was dismantling the sacred altar of life, and that I should feel reverence for everything to do with that. So as I look around on this Mother Earth, as I look around at this sacred hoop, I see that everything is doing one thing, right? It's trying to make more life, trying to make more life, trying to make that flower, to make that seed, to make that next fruit and life. So everything is geared towards making life. So I have to say that here on this Mother Earth, the plan is life. The plan is life. And so for me to acknowledge the very beginnings of our kind's contribution to life, which would be what happens during menstruation, is very powerful. And it's a very powerful offering to give to this Mother Earth. I was told that we are withholding that very powerful offering from the Mother Earth, and that we really need to be giving that to her again. We withhold the very beginning of life, which is that menstrual blood. And we also withhold the very end result of our lives, which is our bodies when we die. Both of those offerings we're withholding from the earth at this time in terms of modern world paradigm structure. So I found that if I consciously sat with this Mother Earth and I either energetically or literally offered that menstruation material to her, and again with consciousness, and saying, this is our life, and I give it back to you who give us everything we need to take care of everyone we love throughout our lives. I give this to you, and I open myself to you to receive your guidance and care, nurturing, nourishment, and instruction. And so when I have done that, when I have opened my heart and my biology to this Mother Earth, and my spirit and my prayer, what I have received is guidance and direction and instruction and vision. And there are very complex ways to hold such an encounter, such a prayer with this Mother Earth, but it can be very, very simple, just for going off by yourself and spending even an hour with her. But if you can spend a day or all the time consciously with her, those are the times that I have really experienced the depth of what is possible in my relationship with her. So I say this, even though it's sort of a little bit, it's not a little bit, it's a lot taboo in modern world culture. But I don't think we can talk about what the women's role is potential role is for our contribution to the sacred hoop of life without talking about that. And so it's from that place that when the Kogi elders came to visit in the Southwest here, what we now call the United States, and there were mostly women who came to be with them. They were hoping for male and female counterparts from each of the indigenous peoples in the area, but it was the women who answered the calls, and they found that very significant. So first they said over and over and over again, the women are going to lead, the women are going to lead, the women are going to lead. And I really consider these elders of the indigenous peoples of the Sierra Nevadas and Colombia to be elders of elders. They're some of the least colonized peoples on the planet. And yet they have also chosen to come out and speak to the planet, to their younger brothers, as they call the rest of the world. And part of their practice as in their medicine people is to go into the caves, and they stay in the caves from birth until anywhere from 10 years old to 20 years old. So this is a very, very deep practice and very deep listening. And so when they came out and spoke to us, I was really paying attention. And so when they said, the women are going to lead, I really took that to heart. And I've been thinking about that a great deal. But the other thing that they said that has really stuck with me is the very last thing they said of our 5-day gathering is they said, to the women we say, you must move and speak and act with the authority of the woman. You must move and speak and act with the authority of the woman. Boy, those words just rang like a gong in my bones. And so I've been thinking and praying a lot about what does that mean? And so I decided to begin to have this name for myself as the female of our kind. So from Diné, I call myself Holy Earth Surface Walker. And I call myself Life Bringer, Life Bearer. And I would call myself that regardless of whether I had human biological children, because there is our creative way and bringing creativity in all that we do to our lives in community. And so here I am, Holy Earth Surface Walker, Life Bringer, Life Bearer. And I say, I stand with the full authority of the Mother Earth, because I must move and speak and act with the authority of the Mother. Which Mother? The Mother Earth, the Mother, the authority. She's the authority around here. We're not going to bend her laws of life to suit us. And that's how we've been living and behaving. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. It's ludicrous to believe that it could. So instead, we are going to have to go back, or maybe go for the first time as a species, and understand how to align with her laws, how to align with this construct. It's like gravity. There are certain things that cause life to thrive, and it's time that we understand what some of those things are. So I am standing in this authority. I'm reaching out. I'm calling out for what it means for me to stand with this authority. So what I know is that in our cultures, we say that the woman is synonymous with life, and we say that the woman is synonymous with earth. And so for me to stand with the full authority of the Mother Earth, I say also, the last part of my phrase so far in my understanding of myself is to say, and I stand with the full authority of the Mother Earth, and I have the authority to ask in every situation, are we placing life at the center of our actions, of our decisions, of our words, of our thoughts, of our relationships and relating? So I think this is really the part that we're after here as we think about Sacred Earth Activism. What does this authority mean? Well, I think I have started out by understanding one thing that it doesn't mean. My daughter doesn't really like that word authority. She always kind of bristles when I use that word. I don't like that word authority, Mom. So we live in what I call a power over paradigm. This is modern world paradigm. And in this paradigm, you must overpower another in order to have what you need. And so it is inherently competitive and it's inherently violent, which actually during this pandemic, I think we're really getting a very clear look at the inherent violence in it. And so when we are presented with this idea that we have to overcome each other, that we have to beat each other out, or literally beat each other up in order to have what we need, we push collaboration and cooperation completely out of the picture. And in fact, science is beginning to discover that it's not survival of the fittest, never has been. It's survival of the cooperative and the collaborative. That's actually how this interbeing, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, this sacred hoop is constructed. I cannot be well if you are not well, ultimately. So I've been saying, we are in the ultimate three-legged race. We're in the ultimate three-legged race. We are bound together. Our well-being is bound and tied to each other, not just humans, but all life. And as humans, we are given the gift of free will. So we're bound together. Our well-being is completely dependent upon each other. And we've also been given free will. So that means that we are going to have to choose cooperation. We're going to have to choose collaboration. And what are the highest forms of those two ways? I'm going to say love. It's love. it turns out that love is the ingredient that can not only make us sustainable, that word sustainability. Okay, we need that word, I suppose. But for me, it's so sterile. It has such a sterility to it. Because really, what I think we could aim for, and I feel like, it's something that I experience in my own cultures, in our ceremonies, in our way with each other, in our traditional relatings to each other, is, it's more of a mad love affair. It's a mad love affair with Earth, such that I have to wear certain adornments to acknowledge certain things that have happened. I have to wear this turquoise in acknowledgement of the way that this stone cared for and gave health and spoke to my people and helped us understand how to be here in that way that causes all other life to thrive. So we are, I think, in a place of remembering love. We are in a place of remembering being smitten. And I think Thich Nhat Hanh also said that what we really need is to fall in love with Earth again. So to fall in love with Earth again is also to fall in love with us again. And I think I will go ahead and I'm about at 30 minutes here. So I'm going to close this part here by saying something. My daughter wrote this poem, and I think she attributes it to the Choctaw. And she said, the Choctaw have said all there is to say. You have not defeated our people until the hearts of our women are on the ground. The Choctaw have said all there is to say. You have not defeated our people until the hearts of our women are on the ground. And so I say that is a directive to all of us. Women's Nation is the faith keeper for the people. It's the heart that holds out hope for every child, no matter what kind of mess they may have gotten themselves into. And our young people are suffering, and they are getting into some very deep difficulties and imprisonment and such. But the mother's heart holds out hope in every situation for every child. And so I say this is a directive to all of us, that we have to pay attention to what is happening to the hearts of the women. The hearts of the women must not touch the ground. So I say this to Men's Nation. There is something very primal about this that I ask you to be on the lookout for. And I know that your hearts are also hurting in many instances. And I'm also going to say to Women's Nation, we have to caretake each other's as sisters, our hearts. Create an unshakable sisterhood. I was told if we create an unshakable sisterhood, that we will heal the earth. And for all the spectrum of genders, I ask for your help and blessing in upholding the hearts of the women. So I'll stop there and see what we have for questions.
So thank you very much. There are some questions. Shall we do questions first? I'll tell you something first. I liked the mad love affair with Earth, because it just feels right. We must feel that, really feel it. But I come to some question. There's lots of thank yous. That was beautiful. Somebody here says, I love the mad love affair with Mother Earth, and it's time to give the mothers time and space to be the center of it all, so that we start honoring the mothers and with it Earth. There's something in that, isn't there? Because in our culture, we only honor women who basically go out to work and play a role in a certain way. And Anna asks, so I find many activist movements are still very young, so male, and how can we bring and create a safe space for the feminine to be properly heard and honored?
Right. Well, I'm going to go back first to this idea about making the space for the mother and mothering. There's a really fantastic book that really changed my life in many ways, by a man named Joseph Chilton Pearce, and that's Pearce. And he talks about how, so it's called The Biology of Transcendence, and that transcendence is saying, that each one of us is actually has the blueprint, if you will, to become, like the Christ or the Buddha or Muhammad, those enlightened beings that we look to and think about, um, and in order for us to be able to come into that place, there are certain, triggers, biological triggers, that need to take place in order to open up those capacities all along the way. And so he's outlining them. He's doing, looking at child development. Actually, there's a whole bunch more going on there than him talking about child development. But there's this one thread going through, about that. And so he says, when we get to the teenage years, we feel like we're invincible and immortal. And so it's a jumping off place, but it's right at that point that we miss the next trigger for our biology to leap into this place. And so he's saying that, that when we don't make that leap, that we actually kind of get shoved back into our more primal reptilian aspect of our brain and our biology. And that when we are kept in that place, which, as I look around the world right now, that is quite primitive in its methodologies of trying to relate and trying to bring about change, even, we're stuck in that fight or flight place, and so from that place, we actually begin to breed the next generations into that same place. And so he ultimately makes the case that in order for us to really evolve, we have to create a place of safety, of peace, of allowing, of growth and expansion for the mothers, in order to be able to raise a child that is not immediately programmed to operate almost entirely from the reptilian mind space. So something about you reading that really reminded me of that. And then I also want to say that, that I had an encounter, I guess I'll say, with White Buffalo Calf Woman, in which she told me that we, mothers have been deceived into giving up a very principal role for human beings. And that is that we have, she said, every mother is the people's first medicine woman. So you are the child's first medicine woman all the way from birth until their coming of age ceremony, until their adolescence. And so that you have the possibility of orienting the people to life, to the correct outlook for honoring life, to the correct outlook for honoring women, and the correct outlook for honoring men's nation as well. The correct outlook for honoring all the gender spectrum. And so we've been sort of tricked by this modern world paradigm in which it's so competitive around money, into giving up that role and turning it over to strangers and random points of view and random belief systems, right? And so she pointed that out to me, that maybe we need to not be fooled into thinking that that is somehow a lesser role. It is one of the most principal roles we could have, to orient our communities from birth towards life. So anyway, when you were first talking, those things came up, and now I forgot that second question you asked me.
Fine. I think we can leave it at that. I want to ask you a question, which is a follow-up. I was looking for it. There are quite a lot of questions, as you can imagine. And there was one which fits in with what you said. Quite a few of the speakers, and we had it as well yesterday and today, are talking about the younger generation and young people, which are getting very active at the moment. And Jim Peruzzi and myself, I feel that as well. We were very active in the 60s and 70s. And for us, there were no elders, there was no holding, there was no teaching at all. And there is a question which goes in that direction. And I would be interested what you feel and say about it. So this is somebody called Carlotta says, what very concrete advice would you give to young girls starting their path through life and how they can begin to discover that authority of the mother and the feminine? You remember you spoke about that?
Yeah, I speak about that a lot.
I know. It's a big question for a big answer, but I just thought if we use that as the final question, because we're looking at the generation who is coming up now. Is that, shall we?
Yeah.
What advice would you like to give? Whatever, we discovered. So.
Oh, you went mute.
Okay. So we just begin to discover that authority of the feminine, and how can we help them to discover that?
Okay. So, I actually was telling you exactly, exactly how that is. Not you, Krista, but just our audience. In that I'm saying to spend that time with the Mother Earth during menstruation is, I think, something that humanity needs in the most profound way. I mean, isn't that really what we're looking for? If every one of us could ask the Mother Earth for instruction for humanity of how should we be here now, what is really called for? Wouldn't we ask that question if we could really hear her directly tell us? And so this is what I'm saying to you, is that when a young woman during that time of her life cycle pauses and consciously makes that offering to the Mother Earth and inquires from the Mother Earth, I'm seeking your nurturing, your nourishment, and your guidance and instruction for me in my life and what I can be and do here. But also there may be messages that I can carry to others about what is possible and what is called for at this moment. So I'm saying very directly, this is very literal, that young women have a capacity to do that. I'm not saying nobody else has that capacity, but I am saying that women, through that way of the menstruation, have a very, very direct line of communication to the Mother Earth. And we need to be hearing from that voice. Now, when we come out with those messages from the Mother Earth, because modern world paradigm doesn't really acknowledge that anything could happen for women during that time, or that would be useful. That's why we shove it to the side and say, we don't want to hear about it and we don't want to know, and you need to act exactly normal during that time. I would say we can't just come out and say, my menstruation is very important and during it, this is what happened. I don't think we need to bring everybody into that whole process. They're not ready for it. But the Mother Earth, when the Mother Earth is speaking to you in a way that you can understand, there will be an authority in what you have to say and what you choose to do, because you are aligning with this great creative throbbing, thriving life being. And so when we align with her and when we align with her life way, things part. So, I get called on to speak in so many different places and so many different topics. And I'm going to say that part of the reason why I believe I am received and the words that I have are received are because they're not my words. Many of these things are things that I received during my menstruation process, during my moontime ceremonies. And so I think that's sort of like the proof and the evidence that the world will listen to that if we don't also have to impress upon them our wounding of as women being oppressed, as our menstruation being oppressed. I mean, I've had to, let me just say it this way, I've had to rise and ignore some things that are pretty hard to ignore as being female on the planet, because there's been a tremendous amount of wounding. But to align with the Mother Earth and to be able to receive her strength and her guidance and her direction, and to be able to move from that place gives me strength. We say in Lakota way, we say the woman is the backbone of the family, the backbone of the community. How does she do that? How can she be that? I mean, modern women are asking that themselves. How are we supposed to do all this? And I'm going to say we replenish ourselves during those years of menstruation by opening ourselves up and receiving from this Mother Earth, from the Mother, all of her strength, all of her nurturing and nourishment, all of her way of thriving into us, so that we can then carry it out and hold that place of speaking with authority and asking, are we placing life at the center?
And I think we leave it at that. This is a beautiful ending, isn't it? That sentence, are we placing life at the center? And we also run out of time, but that's a side issue. No, I think that is a side issue. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, but I also wanted to ask you, we are going into closing in a moment. We had 2 very full days. Is there anything just right now which you could kind of express? I don't know, a prayer, a blessing, anything that feels right to you. If not, this is absolutely fine, before we then all get together and close.
Sure. I'd love to make a little prayer here for us, and thank you so much for this work and for this weekend and this gathering every time we come together. So I'll say holy people all around. It's me, Weyakpa Najin Win, and I'm coming before you on this holy day. See that we are gathered here, Creator. See that we are gathered here, Holy Spirit. See that we are gathered here, Holy Mother Earth. See that we are gathered here, Mitakwie, Oyasin, Sacred Hoop of Life. All of our relations, the 5-fingered ones, have come together to consider who we are and how we are all related. We've come together to consider how to become that being that harmonizes in this incredible, intricate, complex symphony of life. We ask for your guidance and direction, all that serves life, light, and love. We ask for that mystery door. We ask that you show us how to approach that mystery door in a humble way, in a good way. Let us find the truth of our hearts. Let us try and find the truth of our feeling and be able to present that to you, Mother Earth, to you, Spirit, and to you, Great Mystery, as we 5-fingered ones realign ourselves with life. And we're coming to this place of not knowing. Our best thinking got us here. So we can't figure it out. It's going to have to happen in another way, through our hearts, through our spirits, even through our bodies. So we present ourselves to you and ask for your guidance, direction, and instruction. Please bless each and every one who participated in this meeting over this weekend, those who wanted to be here, those who had a part in bringing it about. and show us the truth. Show us what real love is. Show us how to succeed at what each one of us came here to bring at this time, as we chose to come and walk on this Mother Earth at this time. Show us that pathway of possibility and success for the very highest possibility for life, light, and love. Wopila, Ekehe, Mitakuye, Oyasin, for all my relations. You're muted. Thank you.
I know I'm muted. Thank you ever so much, Pat. Thanks, and many, many blessings to you and to all of us on that path, which we don't
Pleasure to be here today.
figure out in our heads. But I think our hearts know that it's leading somewhere to a change, which we so urgently need. Thank you ever so much for coming.